He was just a poor schoolboy, walking home under the rain, when he saw a homeless man, bleeding by a trash bin. Everyone walked past, but not him. Quick cut, the boy kneels, tearing his shirt to clean the wound. He used his school shirt to stop the bleeding, gave away his lunch, and walked home shivering, not knowing that moment would change his life forever. Cut to the man's eyes opening, whispering faintly, "Why are you helping me?" Cut, a flash of cameras, reporters shouting, a luxury car door opening. Months later, that same man returned, not in rags but in a suit. And he wasn't just anyone, he was a billionaire. Music swells, showing the boy frozen in shock. The boy thought he was saving a stranger, but in truth, he was healing his own destiny. This is Raw Tales Stories, where kindness rewrites fate. Subscribe for more true, powerful stories that touch the soul. Rain fell hard that evening, the kind of cold, uninviting rain that sent people hurrying home with heads bowed and umbrellas tilted. The city streetlights flickered through the downpour, painting puddles and streaks of yellow. Most people walked past without noticing the young boy running along the sidewalk, a thin, determined figure clutching a plastic bag close to his chest. His name was David Brown, 15 years old, son of a single mother who ran a small roadside pharmacy at the edge of town. Inside that plastic bag were a few bottles of medicine and bandages he was delivering to one of his mother's regular customers before heading home. David's shoes slapped through the rain as thunder cracked across the gray sky. His breath came out in white puffs, his old backpack soaked through. But then, he stopped. Something caught his eye. Across the street, near the dumpster behind Keller's grocery, he saw what looked like a man, slumped against the brick wall, unmoving, half covered with a torn blanket. For a moment, David thought it was just trash. Then lightning flashed. And he saw the man's hand twitch. David hesitated. Cars whooshed by, splashing water. People walked past, eyes fixed on their phones, umbrellas up, pretending not to see. The boy swallowed hard and crossed the street. "Sir?" he called out, voice trembling. No answer. He knelt closer. The man's beard was long and gray, his clothes soaked, his skin pale. His leg was bleeding, a nasty wound just above the ankle. The smell of the alley mixed with rain and blood. David's heart pounded. "Sir, can you hear me?" The man's eyes fluttered open for a moment. They were tired, clouded, like someone who'd seen too many bad days in a row. Go away," he muttered weakly. "Don't waste your time." David shook his head. "You're hurt. I can help." He set the plastic bag down, rummaged through it, and pulled out a small bottle of antiseptic and a bandage. His hands trembled. He wasn't a doctor, but he remembered how his mom did it for customers sometimes. He tore a piece from his school shirt, poured antiseptic on it, and pressed it gently against the wound. The man winced, groaning in pain. "Sorry, sir." "Just hold on," David said softly. The rain beat down harder, soaking both of them. David shielded the man with his own jacket. The man looked at him, confused. Why are you doing this?" David smiled faintly, still working on the bandage. "Because no one else will." The old man chuckled bitterly. "Kid, people don't help unless they want something." David looked up, his eyes calm but sincere. "Then maybe they forgot what it means to be human." For a moment, silence. Just the rain. The boy finished cleaning the wound and tied the bandage neatly. He covered the man with his jacket and stood up, shivering. "You'll be okay for now. I'll bring you something to eat." The man stared at him like he was seeing something strange, something impossible. "You don't even know me," the man said, voice raspy. David turned to leave, glancing back once more. "That doesn't matter." As the boy disappeared into the rain, the man looked down at the clean bandage, then at the torn piece of school shirt David had used. He whispered to himself, "That boy, he's light." Back home, David entered quietly, dripping wet. His mother, Ruth Brown, looked up from the counter. "David! Where have you been? You're soaked." He stammered. I saw someone who needed help." Ruth sighed heavily. "You're always stopping for people," You could have been robbed, David. This city isn't safe. I know, he said softly. But he was bleeding, Mom. She paused, her eyes softening, though she tried to hide it. And where's your jacket? I gave it to him. He was cold. Ruth shook her head but didn't say anything else. She walked over and handed him a towel. Dry off and eat something before bed. Later that night, as thunder rolled in the distance, David sat by the small window of their one-bedroom apartment. He looked out into the rain, thinking about the old man. His mother's words echoed in his head. You could have been robbed. But somehow, he didn't feel afraid. He just felt connected. Like he'd seen a side of the world most people ignored. He whispered to himself, I hope you're okay, sir. Across town, in that same dark alley, the old man stirred weakly, looking up at the stormy sky. He clutched the bandage on his leg, then the torn cloth, still damp but warm. He closed his eyes and whispered, Maybe the world's not all bad after all. The next morning, David packed a small lunch, leftover bread and some beans in a container, and slipped out early before school. He found the man still in the alley, awake this time, sipping rainwater from a cup. Morning, David said cheerfully. I brought you something. The man frowned, squinting. You again? David grinned. Told you I'd come back. He handed him the food. The man hesitated, then took it slowly. What's your name, kid? David, he replied. What's yours? The man looked away. Harris. Mr. Harris. They ate in silence. For a moment, the city noise seemed to fade away, just a young boy and a broken man sharing a meal under the morning gray. When David stood up to leave for school, Mr. Harris said quietly, You remind me of someone I used to know. Someone who believed in people too much. David smiled. Maybe that's not such a bad thing. As David disappeared down the street, Mr. Harris whispered, Maybe not. Maybe it's what the world's missing. And for the first time in years, he smiled. Days passed, and every morning before school, David visited the same alley. The first time, he brought a sandwich. The next, a blanket. Then painkillers for Mr. Harris's leg. The wound was healing slowly, but the man's pride, that was harder to mend. David shrugged. Because you need someone. The old man snorted. I've survived years without anyone. Don't start thinking you're some kind of hero. David smiled. I'm not. I'm just trying to do what's right. Harris looked away, eyes heavy with something darker, guilt, maybe. Doing what's right doesn't pay the bills, kid. You'll learn that soon enough. But deep down, his words didn't match the flicker of warmth behind them. At home, Ruth Brown began to notice her son's routine. You've been leaving early, she said one evening as she cooked dinner. Don't tell me you're still visiting that stranger. David hesitated. He's not a stranger anymore. Ruth sighed, turning to him. David, I know you mean well, but life doesn't work that way. People take advantage. They see kindness as weakness. David frowned. What if everyone thought that way? What happens to people like him? Ruth didn't answer. She just stirred the soup quietly, her face shadowed by memory. Later, David overheard her speaking on the phone, her voice low and worried. I'm just afraid he'll get hurt, Sam. He's got too much heart and no idea how cruel this world can be. David looked down, torn. He wanted to make his mom proud, but he couldn't turn his back on Mr. Harris. At school, things weren't much better. His classmates mocked him for wearing old clothes, his shoes worn thin. But what stung most was Ethan, the rich kid who always found something to laugh at. Yo, Brown! You feeding stray dogs now? Ethan sneered one afternoon when he saw David giving a sandwich to a homeless man near the gate. David ignored him, but Ethan kept laughing. Careful, bro. You might catch something. The other kids laughed. David clenched his fists but walked away. He wasn't fighting for pride. He was fighting to keep his humanity. Still, the words burned. One evening, David found Mr. Harris sketching something in the dirt with a stick. It looked like a set of strange symbols, geometric shapes, arrows, lines, and numbers. What's that? David asked. Harris quickly erased it with his hand. Nothing. Just old habits. You were an engineer? David asked curiously. The man froze, eyes flicking up. Why would you think that? The way you draw, David said. And you always stare at the streetlights like you're studying them. Mr. Harris chuckled softly. Smart boy. He leaned back, sighing. Yeah, I used to build things. Bridges. Towers. Systems that kept the world running. Until I made one mistake. What mistake? Harris's eyes went distant, full of regret. Trusting the wrong people. That night, David couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about Harris's words. Who was this man? Why was he living on the streets? He decided to ask. The next morning, he found Harris awake early, staring at the sunrise. Mr. Harris, David said gently, what happened to you? Harris chuckled darkly. You really want to know? David nodded. The old man rubbed his beard. I used to work for a big company. Helped design a system, a new way to monitor and track city energy use. But my partner, he stole it. Took credit for everything. Made millions while I lost everything. David's eyes widened. That's terrible. Yeah, Harris muttered. After that, no one hired me. I drank. I ran. I gave up. The streets were the only place that didn't ask questions. David's heart ached. But you're still here. You didn't give up all the way. Harris looked at him, a mix of surprise and pain. Maybe you're the first reason I haven't. The next day, David took Harris to a small park bench near the church. He'd convinced Pastor Reed, a kind old man, to let Harris sleep under the church awning. The pastor nodded approvingly. You've got a good heart, David. But remember, faith isn't just about saving others, it's also about keeping your own light from fading. David smiled faintly. I'll be okay. That night, as David helped Harris settle into a cleaner place, the old man said quietly, No one's ever done this for me. Not even when I was rich. David blinked. You were rich? Harris smiled sadly. Once. But you learn quick, money can't buy peace. David chuckled. Then maybe peace is what we should chase. As the night deepened, they sat beneath the broken streetlight. Rain started again, gentle this time. David, Harris said, his voice softer than usual. You remind me of my son. David looked surprised. You have a son? Had, Harris said quietly. He died years ago. He was about your age. The boy looked down. I'm sorry. Harris smiled faintly. Don't be. Maybe that's why I met you. Maybe. God's giving me a second chance to do right. David smiled, eyes glassy with tears. Then promise me something. When you get better, you'll never give up again. Harris nodded. And you promise me you'll never lose that heart of yours. No matter what this world throws at you. They shook hands, the young and the broken, under a flickering light that refused to die. And somewhere deep in the city, life was quietly preparing to turn that moment into something neither of them could ever imagine. Weeks passed. The winter chill had begun to fade, and the first hints of spring touched the city streets. David's visits to Mr. Harris had become part of his daily rhythm, as natural as breathing. He'd bring food, sit with him under the church awning, and they'd talk for hours about life, mistakes, and dreams. But one morning, everything changed. When David arrived with a small container of rice and beans, the spot was empty. The blanket was gone. The old mug Harris used was shattered on the ground. David froze. Mr. Harris? He looked around, checked behind the benches, even asked the shopkeeper across the street. No one's been here all morning, the woman said. Maybe he moved on. David felt something heavy drop inside his chest. Moved on, the words didn't sit right. Harris wouldn't just leave without saying goodbye. He searched for hours, down the alley where they first met, near the park bench, even around the train station. But the man who had become like family was nowhere to be found. That night, David sat silently at dinner. His mother noticed. "What's wrong, honey?" she asked, setting down her spoon. David hesitated. "He's gone, Mom. Mr. Harris. He just disappeared." Ruth sighed softly, reaching across the table. "Maybe that's for the best, David. Some people come into our lives for a season. You helped him, that's what matters." But David shook his head. "No. It doesn't feel right. He was getting better. He was starting to hope again." His mother looked down at her bowl. "Sometimes hope scares people more than pain." That night, David couldn't sleep. He lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering if Harris was okay. Was he hurt again? Did someone chase him off? He whispered into the dark. "Where did you go, old man?" Months passed. David finished his final school exams. His grades were good, but money for college was a dream too big for his family. He took small jobs, delivering medicine, washing cars, helping neighbors carry groceries. Everywhere he went, he looked for Harris. Every old man on the street, every bearded face near a shelter, his eyes searched. But he never found him. The world moved forward, but part of David stayed behind, in that rainy alley, holding a bottle of antiseptic and a torn piece of shirt. One afternoon, after finishing a delivery run, David stopped at the community library. As he walked in, he noticed a group of people gathered around a computer screen, murmuring excitedly. "Look at this," one woman said. "This video's everywhere. Over 1 million views in a day." David leaned closer. The thumbnail showed a man sitting on a park bench, gray beard, worn clothes, surrounded by reporters. His heart skipped. "That can't be." He moved closer. The video title read, "Homeless man reveals he's a former tech millionaire, says a teen saved his life." David's breath caught. He clicked play. On the screen, under bright sunlight, Mr. Harris sat in a clean suit, hair trimmed, eyes clearer than David had ever seen them. Cameras surrounded him as he spoke into microphones. "I was homeless for years," Harris said. "I gave up on life. I thought the world had forgotten me. But then, a boy, maybe 15, maybe 16, found me in an alley. He didn't ask for anything. He just helped." The reporters leaned in. "He healed me," Harris continued. "Not just my wound, but my heart. That boy showed me something money never could, humanity." David's hands trembled. People around the screen gasped. "He never even told me his last name," Harris said, voice cracking. "But if he's out there, I want him to know, I'm looking for him." David stepped back, breath shaking. "Mr. Harris," he whispered. The librarian looked at him curiously. "You okay, son?" David nodded faintly, eyes glassy. "Yeah. I know him." That night David rushed home, breathless. "Mom!" he shouted. "It's him! Mr. Harris, he's alive!" Ruth turned, startled. "What are you talking about?" He opened his phone, showing her the video. Tears filled his eyes as Harris's voice echoed from the tiny speaker. "I'm rebuilding my life now. I started a foundation to help kids who help others, the Kindness Initiative. I owe it all to that boy. And I'll find him, no matter how long it takes." Ruth covered her mouth. "David, that's incredible." He nodded. "He kept his promise, Mom. He didn't give up." Ruth hugged him tightly. "And you helped him remember how to live." But deep down, David felt something else, a quiet whisper of destiny. He didn't know how or when, but he felt it. Their paths weren't done crossing. A week later, as David helped unload boxes at the pharmacy, a black car stopped across the street. A man in a suit stepped out, holding an envelope. "Excuse me," he said. "Are you David Brown?" David frowned. "Yeah, who are you?" The man smiled politely. "I'm with the Harris Foundation. Mr. Harris asked me to give you this." He handed David the envelope and left before the boy could speak. Inside was a note, written in neat, familiar handwriting. David, I told you the world would remember your kindness. Meet me at Keller's Grocery, 5 p.m., Saturday. Bring your mother. H. David's hands shook as he read the words again and again. His heart raced. After all this time, he came back. He looked up toward the sky, smiling through tears. Guess you kept your promise, old man. It was Saturday afternoon. The sky was calm, the sun soft and golden. David had barely slept the night before. Every time he closed his eyes, the same image filled his mind, Mr. Harris's face on that video, smiling and saying he would find the boy who saved him. He checked his watch for the 10th time. 4:47 p.m. His mother, Ruth, stepped out of their small house, adjusting her scarf. You've been pacing for an hour, David, she said with a chuckle. Relax. Whoever this man is, he clearly means well. David smiled nervously. You don't understand, Mom. This is big. He's not just a man, he's Mr. Harris. The man I told you about. Ruth looked at him, confused. The homeless man? David nodded, eyes bright. Yeah. But he's not just that anymore. You'll see. They started walking to Keller's Grocery, the meeting spot mentioned in the note. Each step felt heavier, like time was stretching itself out, teasing him. His heart pounded in his chest. When they turned the corner, David froze. In front of the grocery store were two black SUVs, a small crowd, and what looked like a TV crew. Microphones, lights, cameras, everything. Mom, he whispered. That's him. From one of the SUVs, a man stepped out. He was dressed in a navy suit, clean-shaven, looking 10 years younger than David remembered. But those eyes, kind, deep, and calm, he'd recognize anywhere. Mr. Harris? David said softly. The man turned. For a moment, it was like the world went quiet. Then a wide smile spread across Harris's face. David! He exclaimed, striding forward. You really came! They met halfway and hugged tightly. The cameras clicked, people whispered, but David didn't care. His chest felt like it might burst. I thought you were gone, David said, voice trembling. I was, Harris replied softly. But you brought me back. A reporter stepped forward. Mr. Harris, she said, is this the young man you've been searching for? Harris nodded proudly. Yes. This is David Brown, the boy who healed a broken stranger. The cameras turned to David. He blinked, overwhelmed. I just helped someone who needed it. The crowd clapped lightly. Harris smiled, turning to the reporters. When I met David, I was lost, not just in the streets, but in my soul. I had walked away from everything after my company collapsed and my wife passed. But this boy didn't see a failure or a beggar. He saw a human being. Ruth watched silently, her eyes filling with tears. Harris continued, voice cracking. I had millions once, but I had never been truly rich, not until I met him. Because kindness, real kindness, is priceless. After the cameras stopped rolling, Harris pulled David and his mother aside. The crowd began to disperse, giving them space. I didn't just come to thank you, Harris said, reaching into a folder. I came to make things right. He handed Ruth a sealed envelope. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was a check. Her eyes widened. Mr. Harris, this must be a mistake. This is $100,000. Harris smiled gently. No mistake. That's for David's education and for your family. He gave me hope when I had nothing. Now it's my turn to give him a future. David stepped back, shaking his head. Mr. Harris, I can't accept that. You don't owe me anything. Harris looked him squarely in the eye. David, listen to me. Kindness doesn't end with one act. It grows. You started something, and now I'm helping it continue. Take it, son. And use it to make the world better, the same way you made me better. David's eyes filled with tears. I don't know what to say. Harris smiled warmly. Yes. Your name's on it. You inspired it. Reporters gathered again, filming as Harris spoke. This center will help kids from poor backgrounds, the way David helped me. It'll give them education, healthcare, and support, because no one should be invisible in this world. The crowd cheered. David turned to Harris, tears streaming down his face. You named it after me? Harris put a hand on his shoulder. I didn't name it after you. I named it after what you represent, hope. After the ceremony, as the sun began to set, David and Harris sat on a bench outside the new building. Harris sighed. You know, I used to think money could fix everything. But the truth is, it's people like you who make the real change. David smiled faintly. I didn't do much. I just helped someone who was hurt. Exactly, Harris replied. And that small act changed everything. You didn't heal just a wound, David, you healed a life. And now that life is healing others. They sat in silence for a moment, the breeze gentle and the sky painted orange. Then Harris said quietly, I don't have a son, David. Not anymore. But if I did, I'd want him to be just like you. David's throat tightened. He looked at Harris and whispered, Then I guess you've got one now. Harris smiled, eyes glistening. Yeah. I guess I do. Later that night, the news broadcasted their story. Across the country, people watched and shared the video. The boy who healed a homeless man and changed 2 lives forever. Messages poured in. Donations to the Harris Foundation skyrocketed. People began sharing stories of their own kindness, strangers helping strangers, kids helping the elderly, communities rebuilding trust. David sat beside his mother as they watched, holding her hand. Ruth whispered, Your father would have been proud. David smiled softly. I think he knows. He looked out the window at the night sky, a soft wind brushing the curtains. Funny, he said quietly. I thought I was helping a man survive. Turns out, I helped him live. The screen opens with a sunrise over the new David Brown Community Center. The golden light glows against the building's glass panels, and children are already gathering outside, holding books, laughing, running. A calm narrator's voice fades in. Some stories end where others begin. For David Brown, the boy who once healed a stranger on the roadside, his story was only just beginning. David now stood taller. His once shy face carried quiet confidence. He had just turned 19 and was wearing a white shirt with the logo of Harris Foundation Scholars embroidered on it. Inside the community center, the walls were alive with color, pictures of kids learning, volunteers teaching coding, art, and healthcare. And in the main hall, a sign read, Kindness is the greatest degree. Ruth, his mother, worked as an administrator at the center. She smiled proudly each time she saw her son speaking to the children. Who would have thought, she whispered to a coworker, that a boy who used to fix broken toys would one day fix broken futures? The coworker smiled. You raised a good one. News crews were back, this time for a documentary. A journalist, Angela Brooks, sat with David in the center's reading lounge. So, David, she said softly, the world knows you as the boy who healed a homeless man. How has your life changed since that day? David smiled thoughtfully. Everything changed, but also nothing did. I still wake up the same. I still want to help people. The only difference is now, I can help more. Angela nodded. What do you remember most about that night on the road? David's gaze softened. His eyes. They looked empty. Like he'd given up on life. But when I spoke to him, something shifted. I didn't realize it then, but that moment saved us both. Angela leaned forward. Saved you both? David nodded. Yeah. I didn't have much hope back then either. My father was gone, school felt impossible, and the world seemed unfair. But helping him made me realize maybe life gives us pain so we can turn it into purpose. Angela paused, moved. And now Mr. Harris has built this entire foundation in your name. David smiled. It's not about my name. It's about what kindness can build when you believe in it. Later that afternoon, the doors of the community center opened, and there he was. Mr. Harris. He walked in quietly, holding a cane, his suit crisp, his spirit as vibrant as ever. The crowd erupted into applause as he entered. David hurried to him. "Mr. Harris! You came back!" Harris chuckled. "You think I'd miss the 1-year anniversary of the center we built together?" They hugged warmly. Reporters snapped photos. "David," Harris said softly, "I have something to tell you." David frowned, curious. "What is it?" Harris handed him a small envelope. "It's a letter," he said. "From me to you, but not the man standing here today. The man I was before I met you." David opened it carefully. Inside, a single line was written in neat handwriting. "To the boy who healed a broken stranger, thank you for reminding me that life isn't over until you stop giving." David's eyes filled with tears. "You kept this all this time?" Harris nodded. "Every word of it. Because you didn't just save my life, David. You changed how I saw it. I want you to remember, the world doesn't need more successful people. It needs more kind ones." After the ceremony, Harris called everyone into the auditorium. The lights dimmed. A video began to play on the screen, a montage of kids studying, farmers learning modern tools, women starting small businesses. Then the title appeared. "The David Brown Scholarship, launching in 20 countries." Gasps filled the hall. David turned to Harris in shock. 20 countries? Harris smiled. "Why stop at one city? If a single act of kindness can ripple this far, imagine what happens when thousands join in." Reporters rushed forward. Cameras flashed. David stood there, speechless, until Harris handed him a microphone. "Say something, David." David looked at the crowd, hundreds of faces, young and old, black and white, all watching him. He took a deep breath. "When I met Mr. Harris, I didn't see a homeless man. I saw someone who needed help, and that's all. Today I see all of you, people who can do the same. You don't need money to change the world. You just need heart." The room fell silent. Then the applause erupted, echoing like thunder. That night, back home, David sat by his desk writing. He began a letter, not to anyone specific, but to the world. If you ever feel like you don't matter, remember this: someone, somewhere, is breathing easier because you existed. Kindness doesn't fade, it multiplies. So don't stop giving, even when the world feels cold. One small act can rewrite an entire story. He folded the letter and pinned it to his wall. Weeks later, the camera pans to the community center at night. The lights are dim, the courtyard empty. But there, sitting on the bench where he first met Mr. Harris, is David, older now, peaceful. Beside him is a little boy holding a notebook. "Mr. David," the boy says, "Mom says you help everyone." "Why?" David smiles gently. "Because someone once helped me when I didn't even ask." The boy nods, thinking. "So, you're just passing it on." David chuckles softly. "Exactly. Always pass it on." The camera slowly zooms out as the boy rests his head on David's shoulder. The sign behind them glows softly in the night. "The David Brown Community Center, built on kindness." Music swells, emotional, soft piano and strings. Then a voiceover closes the story. "Sometimes, the smallest act of kindness can light the darkest road. And sometimes, the person you heal becomes the one who heals."